Hello and welcome. On behalf of the Indiana Arts Commission and our regional arts partners, thank you. Your support is so very important to the arts right now, and we deeply appreciate each and every one of you for dedicating your time, energy, and valuable experience to this process. We couldn't do this without you. You are what makes our grant funding process fair and transparent. And who better to determine who should receive public funds than you and your amazing peers, the public? I am Paige Sharp, Deputy Director of Programs for the Indiana Arts Commission, and I am here today to orient you to our panel process for fiscal year 2022. If you have any questions during this presentation, please jot them down and reach out to your regional partner or program contact. They are here for you, and they want to help. First, let's start with who we are. The Indiana Arts Commission is your state arts agency, and for over 50 years, we have worked to bring public funds for the arts back to the public to positively impact the cultural, economic, and educational climate of Indiana. We provide grants to arts organizations, arts providing organizations, and artists, and provide educational opportunities like the annual Indiana Arts Homecoming Conference. We couldn't do what we do and provide great access and service to all counties of our state without our 11 regional arts partners. These dedicated partners help us bring arts to everyone and are the arts touchstones for each of their multi-county regions. So let's get you set up for paneling. Number one, and as soon as you can, respond to emails from your regional partner or program contact, particularly when asked to complete the conflict of interest form. Now, this is super important. Review all the applications you're assigned by 2 business days before the panel. I don't just randomly highlight things in pink, y'all. We really need you to do this. So we are fully prepared for panel day, which will be via online through Zoom. And when you have questions, trust me, I have asked every question possible. It took me like 50 years to understand in kind, for example, and I'm still learning new things about reading financial statements. So please reach out with questions, truly. And remember, you're awesome. We asked you to be a panelist for a reason. We know you want to be the best panelist you can be, so let's help you do just that by first talking about bias. Explicit bias is our attitude about something that we're aware of, and we're upfront about it. Like, I love cats, and I'm explicit about loving cats. I would say, oh, I love cats when I meet a new one. But implicit bias, now that one's really sneaky. We're not even aware of our implicit biases, but guaranteed they exist. Did you know our brain naturally makes shortcuts to process all of that information coming at us all the time? It's so we can respond more quickly. We need to in order to survive. Our brain makes links really fast from our past experience. We develop expectations, and when things don't match our expectations, we unconsciously respond. In the image here, what does this lady do for a living? If you immediately thought nurse, meet your implicit bias. She's a doctor. Biases are normal, and they can be positive or negative. So why are we talking about implicit bias? And I could say from personal experience, it's because it shows up in the panel process. And I'll show you what I mean. We're going to be reading lots of applications. Think about your preferences. Mine, for example, is visual arts. I studied painting and I love art museums. What's that mean? That means I am hands down biased towards liking art museums. And I'm very aware of that. So I need to be very self aware when evaluating an application from an art museum. Can I be objective? Yes. I just need to remind myself, Paige, focus on the criteria. How are you approaching this? Are you layering your own expectation onto the applicant? Are you being overly generous because you love the exhibitions they're talking about? Or overly harsh because they're doing something you wouldn't do? Here's another example. A video is submitted in the application and it's so choppy. Oh my goodness, you roll your eyes. You say to yourself, I would never submit a video like that. Okay, well, maybe you wouldn't, but you're not the applicant that's running 14 programs, raising 2 kids, and has to write the application at the library because the internet's so bad. Focus on the big picture. Here's another common thing we see, the halo or pitchfork effect. This is really common when a panelist brings prior knowledge of the applicant to the table. I once had a panelist say, I love this organization. Their performance last year that I went to was stunning. She gave them a 100% score, despite they're not answering one of the primary narrative questions worth 25 points. Conversely, we've had panelists give an application of score of like 20 out of 100, while on the same panel, the rest of the panelists gave an application of score well above 80. We know there's something going on when we see that. Another example of this effect is when one statement in the application impacts how you see the rest of the application, good or bad. So be self-aware. That's your biggest tool for this toolbox. And remember, you are here to evaluate the application only, not your experience with the applicant, the actual application. I know that can be really hard sometimes, but it's super important. It's why we're having this conversation today. If your own bias is clouding your review, cite a conflict of interest. And that means for good or bad. Okay, here's the last one, and it's super common. First, let's be clear. If the application has a lot of misspellings and syntax errors, or the directions aren't followed very well, yeah, it can be distracting, but it's not something to evaluate because it's not in the criteria. Remember your tools in the toolbox, being self-aware, and to be a great panelist, be an arts advocate, a cheerleader. We're not here to vilify applications or applicants. We're here to support, lend expertise, and recommend where applicants can improve to meet the criteria. Not everyone's a great grant writer, but that doesn't mean the organization isn't doing great things or can't put on a great project. There are a lot of amazing art people just wanting to make a difference in their community and could be writing the application for the first time. And like them, we all started somewhere. Now that you're all well versed in bias, it's the perfect time to go over conflict of interest. If you haven't already completed this form, then complete it as soon as you receive it. If you have a conflict, you'll cite it on that form. You will not be reviewing those applications. Here's a rule of thumb. If you cannot objectively evaluate an application using the criteria, cite a conflict. If you're not sure, talk to your program officer. But in general, the most common conflicts and the ones we definitely need you to cite are if you have a direct financial relationship with the applicant, are a member of the governing board or policy committee, are, say, the auditor of the applicant, or certainly an employee or consultant or major collaborator. Those are the biggest ones. Now that you've got a kind of a broad understanding, I want Deanna to come in and walk you through the online system so you're fully prepared for panel day.
Today, we're going to be going over the online system, also known as Foundant. Your regional arts partner will provide you with your login information. If you are a new panelist, you'll be provided an email and temporary password and will be prompted to create your own password upon logging in. If you are a returning panelist or have applied for grants in the past, you can use your existing login information. Once logged in, you will see in the upper right-hand corner, if you are a applicant, you have multiple roles. You want to make sure you have selected the panelist role. On the left-hand side of the screen, there is a home icon. If at any point you would like to come back to your dashboard, which would be this screen, you can click that home icon. Below, you will see all of the applications that have been assigned to you for reviewing and your status. If you take a look at this list and notice that there is an organization you think you may have a conflict of interest with, please reach out to your regional arts partner so that can be removed. But based on the conflict of interest form provided, there shouldn't be anything listed in there that you have a conflict with. To begin reviewing, you'll click the red pending icon on the right-hand corner. Once you're in the system, you will be viewing the evaluation form on the left and the application on the right side by side. Anything that is listed in blue is going to be a link that you can click on both in the evaluation and in the application. Anything listed in green is a note, and you'll see that throughout the application and throughout the evaluation form. Applicants were provided the evaluation criteria when they were applying, and we have sectioned out the evaluation form and the application into the sections. So you will see artistic quality corresponds with the artistic quality, artist benefit. So the questions that you are evaluating are clearly outlined both in the application and in the evaluation. There is a scoring guide for you to use, so how you should score an application or question based on the criteria. For each section, when you enter a score, you'll also be asked to provide comments to support the score given. The system will autosave, so at any point, if you were to click on one of these, click into the box, type something, click out of the box, it will autosave. But at the very bottom of the form, there is also a save button that you can click. Another quick tip to be aware of is how to view documentation and links provided in the application. So as you scroll down on the right-hand side, you will notice there are sections where a document is requested to be uploaded. If you click on the little I to the right of the link, this will open the document viewer. To the left-hand corner of that viewer, you can see how many pages there are, and you can go forward and backwards through the different pages. If something was scanned in sideways, you also have the ability to rotate different directions. If it's super tiny, you can zoom in and zoom out. And if you just wanted to look through all the artistic examples or any other uploaded documents, they're all in a list here on the right, so you can just click on to the next one as well, and that will bring you into the next document that was uploaded. And again, you can go through the different pages that were provided, rotate if needed, zoom in and zoom out. You can close out by either clicking the little X at the top or the close button at the bottom right. Also, scrolling down, there are sections where we ask individuals to provide links. If you click on the little globe to the left, that will open the link that was provided for you. If an applicant has included a link in the narrative box, you cannot click on the text within the narrative box. You would have to copy and paste it into a new tab in your browser. If you prefer to have applications printed out in front of you versus on the screen for reviewing, you can click this application packet in the upper right-hand corner. To do so, it'll generate a PDF that you can download and save and print. So again, to go back to your dashboard, you're going to click on that home icon. You can click in and out of applications while you review and return at any point in time. As you begin reviewing, this will turn green and no longer be red, tell you how many questions you have left to review and your status. If at any point you would like to click back in and change a score or finish scoring, all you simply have to do is click on that red icon, or if it's in progress, it'll be kind of a green bar, and it will turn into a green check mark when it's done. And so just because you're done reviewing, you can still go back in and adjust scores and comments as needed once you've finished reviewing, even though it will show a green check mark for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your regional arts partner, or if you have any technical questions about the online system, feel free to give me a call or an email. That information is also provided to you by your regional arts partner.
Welcome. Often affectionately referred to as APS, the Arts Project Support Program provides funding to Indiana arts and non-arts organizations to support a distinct aspect of the organization's arts activities, such as a one-time event, a single production, an exhibition, an educational seminar, or a series of related arts activities, such as arts classes or training sessions. They can request up to $5,000, and there is no match required this year. That means their entire income can be this grant, and that's okay. You know it, I know it, and national data shows it very clearly that artists have been some of the hardest hit by this pandemic. And as a result, IAC in this program prioritizes funding arts projects that benefit local artists. This means that one of the considerations for funding will be the extent to which an artist will directly financially benefit from the project through the budget and or the project itself. And by local artist, we mean Indiana. So, how do you evaluate applications? You are evaluating and scoring applications based upon the evaluation criteria. Applications have a maximum score of 100 points. Applicants must receive an average score of 75 or higher to be eligible for funding. That doesn't guarantee funding, it just makes them eligible. When it comes to evaluating applications, here's the great news. The order of the criteria and application questions align, which means you can evaluate as you go along. And the criteria is right there for the applicant to see as well. They can't and you can't miss it. You're evaluating how well each applicant addresses each of those areas: artistic quality, artist support, community engagement and idea, and project management. And as you'll see in a bit, we break those down into measures. First, let's concentrate on artistic quality and how the IEC defines it. It is important to note that the definition of quality is not to be confused with traditional definitions of highbrow versus lowbrow art forms. In other words, an arts project that brings a performance by the local band to the community isn't of lesser artistic quality than a performance by an international superstar. IAC is not looking for smaller organizations to compete with larger organizations or traditional art forms to compete with contemporary art. A quality artistic project is what is meaningful to the audience. It's measured by the extent to which the applicant, relative to its budget size, demonstrates a committed effort to provide meaningful, impactful experience for their audience. That's the general definition, and this is how IAC wants you to evaluate artistic quality. Your scoring will be based on to the extent you find an applicant meets the IAC's focus areas. You can see in one, it's the extent to which it's an artistic project, the purpose is clear, and if past experiences informs this year's project. So let's look at what that means on your review sheet. IAC puts it into the form of a question for you to answer. For score A, it says, is this an artistic project with a clear history and purpose? And if applicable, does the applicant utilize past experience to inform this year's project? To which in your head you'll say, not really, or maybe sort of, mostly, or oh my gosh, yes. It's a simple rubric that leverages your view and your experience. Take what's in your head and put that into the score sheet. So here's the pro tip for part B of artistic quality. When it comes to artist examples, remember, not everyone is as masterful with a computer as you are. Remember, our conversation about implicit bias? Put on your vision goggles. What's a project look like based upon what the applicant's providing? Let's move on to community engagement and idea or inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. First, to be clear, I'm not going to go over all the evaluation criteria because they're pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go on and hit the highlights and provide some big picture stuff so you know what IAC is looking for and have some tips because I'm all about tips this year, I think. Okay, community engagement and idea. As a public funder, we want to get those valuable public tax dollars back to the public. We know that not everyone has equal or even equitable, most certainly, access to the arts. So it's important to intentionally focus efforts so all can benefit. We focus on community engagement idea so that our field understands what this means and why it's important, particularly for reaching what we call underserved communities or people lacking access to arts programs, services, or resources due to isolated geographic location, low income, race, ethnicity, cultural differences, disability, or other circumstances. If you're not sure you know what community engagement and IDEA mean in practice, please use our resources. That's what they're there for, linked right in the evaluation form so it's easy to access. They're super helpful, engaging, and will give you immediate insight. And it won't take very long, which is awesome. But in short, when it comes to community engagement and IDEA, it's what you do and how you do it. Community engagement, the what, describes the intentional cultivation of two-way community relationships. And IDEA, the how you do that, describes a way we intentionally remove barriers and welcome them to participate in those relationships. What could a barrier be for an arts project, for example? It could be the physical space, lots of steps and no ramps. It could be folks are uncomfortable going because everyone looks the same. What about the location? Is it easy to get to? What about for those the applicant is looking to primarily serve? When are they mostly available? The key to community engagement for the applicant is knowing who they want to engage, developing real meaningful relationships, and gathering their input, like identifying barriers. That way, both benefit the applicant and the audience. Idea work is coming up with strategies to address those barriers together. In short, inclusion, all feel welcomed and valued, and diversity means all the way we differ. And equity is all having the opportunity to fully participate and access of any and all abilities. Our webpage linked in the application provides more detail. Don't hesitate to check it out. It's both in the application for the applicants and the evaluation form for you as well. To be clear, we do not expect arts projects to be everything to everyone, hardly. These are just our definitions. But through our arts projects, we do want to see more overall, genuine, authentic inclusion. So some key highlights for evaluating that section of the application. You'll be measuring the extent to which the applicant addresses each of the measures IEC has in place, like the extent to which an underserved community will benefit and the extent the community is an ongoing part of the project, like through collaboration, planning, or having the leader actively involved. And the extent to which the application has idea strategies in place. What's an idea strategy? It's the removal of barriers, like providing assisted listening devices or providing signs so people can easily navigate a space. It could be collaborating with an organization to ensure their input is included and to help identify barriers, for example. They share their strategies. If they're missing something you see, you could say, I recommend X. I think that would make this project even stronger. It doesn't mean you penalize them for it. Maybe they're doing a pretty good job already. You just have added input from your awesome experience. I do want to highlight something we often see when it comes to evaluating marketing materials. You're not evaluating the materials and social media itself, just if it reflects those they seek to serve. Here are some tips for reviewing the budget section. IEC requires a balanced budget, which means their total cash income and total cash expenses should match. There are times you'll see that's not happening in the application, but fret not. We handle all that stuff on the back end. You just determine the extent to which the budget is well considered and reasonable, like they can do what they propose to do with the budget they're proposing. And IAC separates in kind. In kind means something that's donated by someone other than the applicant. IE separates it because most folks don't see in kind as both income, what was received, and as an expense, the donation, what it's covering. So we just separate it out. It's just easier that way. So a heads up. And here's another thing we can handle later on if needed, and that is change. IAC knows things can change. Don't worry. We have systems in place for that. Review what is presented. We'll take care of rest if needed. And that is not just about the budget, but the project as a whole. Phew, I know this is a lot, but we're getting close. Let's get you prepped for panel day. If you haven't already, soon you'll receive what we call a reader sheet or application list. This is basically what it will look like. Understanding those conflicts of interest we talked about helps your partner get the summary list or reader list out to you. In IEC grant panels, panelists review all applications except those they have a conflict with. At panel day, panelists talk about each and every application. The first reader and second reader process ensures a thorough evaluation. So before panel day, it's really helpful for you to review those comments. It's amazing how quickly one forgets all the work that they've done and the comments they've made. And here are some other tips. Allow plenty of time to review applications, about 1 hour per until you get into the groove. And trust me, you will. It'll happen pretty quickly. Evaluate, comment, and score all applications assigned to you by 2 days before the public panel. Comments are provided to applicants, albeit anonymously, after the panel, so be mindful. There are links available to you in the evaluation form. This also includes access to panelist comments from the past, as well as audios from past panels, program guidelines, and the works. Whatever you need, it should be there. And remember, stick to the evaluation criteria. Not using criteria is cause for appeal. Now I want to give you some guidance on constructing comments. And pro tip, make them relevant to the evaluation criteria. For example, you could say under community engagement, I was particularly impressed by the organization's engagement efforts. It's clear how the community will benefit. Or their community engagement idea work is really strong. They're using multiple strategies. This will be broadly accessible, and the plan to reach a broad audience is well considered. In looking at artistic quality, I can see this is a strong overall project. By the description, I can see it's going to be impactful, things of that nature. But let's take a look at constructive feedback. I can't express to you how important it is to be constructive, kind, mindful, a cheerleader in your feedback. The applicants take this feedback very seriously, and this is an opportunity to provide real help. Here are some examples. Like you could say, for example, in reviewing community engagement idea, there are a few things that could be strengthened. Some things weren't clear to me. The narrative states an artist will be paid, but there's no entry in the budget. Is the artist getting paid? It's not clear. I recommend providing more detail so we can really understand the goals of the project. What would be really helpful here is, and then you provide some input. Constructive feedback can really help the applicant strengthen their application in the future and potentially strengthen the project they'll be providing in the near future. So let's quickly go over what happens on panel day. You and your fellow panelists, the program manager, a facilitator, and IAC staff will all join 1/2 hour before the public panel starts. That way, we can sort out technical stuff, meet one another, and go over some reminders. The public meeting will be streamed live on YouTube and recorded for applicants to observe or watch later if they wish to. Staff is there to answer questions and provide application or policy clarification. Generally, each application takes an average of 5 to 7 minutes to review, sometimes less, and very occasionally more. The facilitator will start the panel by having everyone introduce themselves and providing an overview of the process. The facilitator will then introduce the first application and as the first reader to ask the first reader to provide their assessment of the application, just the strengths and weaknesses as they relate to the criteria. It can be a summary and it's usually just lasts maybe 1 to 2 minutes. The facilitator will then introduce the second reader who will provide any new or opposing perspectives. To be clear, it's helpful to just do new or opposing. You don't have to agree. We're not coming to consensus at this panel, um, but try to avoid redundancies. So it's a very thorough but dedicated conversation. Once the second reader is done, discussion opens to the full panel. Scores are finalized, and the panel repeats this process until all applications have been reviewed and scored. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, he or she will be excused from the room while the application is discussed. This panelist does not score the application. And here are some other tips. You do not need to provide an overview of the application. Everyone has read it. You can just go straight into your um, summary of comments. It is okay if the first reader covered everything and you're in agreement and have nothing to add as the second reader. You can just say, I completely agree and I have nothing to add. Panelists can update their score after the discussion. In fact, there's always dedicated time to do so. It's the opportunity to change the score based upon that fuller discussion. Other panelists have different experiences and they picked up on things that you didn't see. Remember to be constructive and enjoy the opportunity to talk about some great projects. Once you're done, the facilitator will close the meeting and we'll stay on a few minutes to get your feedback. And that's it. Most importantly, don't forget to celebrate. You're awesome for doing all this work, and we deeply appreciate you. And if you have questions from this presentation, just reach out to your program manager. They are more than happy to help. Thank you.